got to be best friends, something that's different back then, with actually my Republican opponent. He and I usually looked up to each other first, and we, to this day, remain close friends, and was fortunate to win that election. As far as I can tell, I was probably the last Democrat to represent any portion of Benton County. I think we've got a Republican committee member back here. And again, that's, this area has always been extremely strong as far as the Republican Party is concerned. And again, I was extremely fortunate. I will tell you that in the very first election, in my Senate district in Benton County, which had the second highest number of votes, I received 18% of the vote. The next time I ran with an opponent, though, I received 58%. So I tried to work pretty hard on serving this area. It's changed today, there's no question. When I was in office, I actually got letters and phone calls. I didn't get emails and text or tweets. I didn't have to keep up with Facebook and see what was being posted. There wasn't any Instagram, thank God. That was around to keep us up. But I'm gonna mention a few things to you because I do encourage you to get involved. I encourage you to run for public office. I probably could have or would have actually made more money staying out of the public process and devoting full-time my interest to business or to law or to private enterprise. But I'm not sure anything would have given me as great a satisfaction as what I have had serving in the state Senate, being chief of staff in the governor's office for 8 years. Mr. Schaefer back here served in that position as well, and Governor Dale Bunkers. It's very, very, very rewarding. You can actually help people. The process, if you ever consider it, you're doing what you need to do. You're getting yourself out. I forgot to turn my cell phone off, so we'll just leave it here. If it goes off, we'll get it. Get yourself known. And again, it's not who you know, it's who knows you as far as that process is concerned itself. Unfortunately, it is about money, and as far as raising money to run for the process, but that's not what it's all about. A lot of it depends on what particular office you may want to run for. Local level, state level, even federal level, it's going to vary. It's going to vary a lot. It is certainly going to change how you conduct yourselves and actually how you spend your days and times. When I was a state senator and the legislature was not in session, I actually was in Little Rock maybe 2 to 3 days out of the month. Currently, there are committee meetings and the legislators are there almost 5 days a week, wouldn't you say, John? Mm-hmm. Almost every day. The so-called part-time legislature has pretty well morphed into a full-time legislative process. A lot of that because of term limit. Members feel like that they've got to stay on top of things, become acquainted with things more quickly, and actually get more in-depth knowledge as far as state government. That can be good and be bad. There are some people now that say that our government agencies can't work because they're at the Capitol every day testifying in front of committees. And every now and then there's some truth to that. But again, that's just the way that the process has changed. So if you're thinking about a legislator, and again, it's up to you. Do you have to be there all the time? No. But a lot of people choose to be so they can engage in the learning process itself. You know, just back to, I'll give you a few anecdotal things that I was able to accomplish with the help of a lot of other people, things that we kind of take for granted, maybe today. I can remember in I guess it was 89. Believe it or not, really, we were one of the few states, it was not a violation of the law for domestic abuse to occur. If a partner was undergoing maltreatment, physical harm, there really wasn't a lot you could do about it. So a group of us got together and actually decided to sponsor Arkansas's first domestic abuse laws, which allowed a partner, spouse, to have a protective order from the courts. While it may sound funny today, we had to fight like hell to get it passed. We were actually opposed by the courts, by a lot of law enforcement, and actually by some of the bar. Again, times have changed. Even though, again, we won. But we really had to fight all of those groups itself just to get something as what we take for granted today, let's say a protective order as far as abuse of spouses. There was a time we actually sponsored tax increases. I know that's pretty shocking, but we actually considered, was it appropriate public policy to have a tax increase, a fee increase? Was the intended use of those monies a matter important enough that we should consider raising those revenues? I can remember a time that there was a 1 cent, 1 penny per pack proposed increase in cigarette taxes. The money was going to pay for senior citizens' meals at the various senior citizens groups around the state itself. The bill was filed in the House of Representatives. Tobacco lobby promptly flew in and promptly killed the measure. Well, there were some of us on the Senate side that didn't particularly like that, so we got together. The Senate's only 35 people, by the way. You can really kind of have a group conspiracy when you've got a group that small. So we decided to refile the bill in the Senate. Decided I would be the sponsor. So I filed the bill. We set a committee hearing. Tobacco lobby came in again. But as they entered the room and were ready to testify, I filed an amendment to the bill. And the amendment to the bill added 31 other senators as sponsors, which meant the bill was over with and the bill was going to be passed. And we didn't have that particular testimony. The bill then eventually passed the Senate, passed the House, and today we've still got the Meals on Wheels program that provide a lot of our senior citizens with the only meal that they really have for that day. In fact, you'd be surprised how many eat half and take the other half home. But again, it was a good program. It was worthy. I could go on and on for things that really have been accomplished. Probably the one I always remember, I had an elderly lady walk in my office one day in Van Buren. In fact, she was probably, I remember she was 81. She had been a hairdresser or a cosmetologist her entire life. She had retired. She did one thing now. She went to nursing homes voluntarily, and she washed ladies' hair. She fixed their hair. And all of a sudden, she brought with her to my office a letter from the Cosmetology Board of Arkansas saying her license was revoked and she could no longer be a hairdresser or a cosmetologist. Believe me, I took care of that quickly. And she received a letter the next week saying everything was fine. 2 weeks later, she shows up at my office with a huge plate of brownies. She said, "This is all I know to do, but I make a real good brownie." But it's little things. It's not big things that you do. It's the personal touch that you can do, that you can really help people. Today, how you gonna run, that's up to you. We still believe a lot in Arkansas on the personal human contact. But again, even I have to admit, how do you run today? You run through social media. That's That's one of the most important means that are out there. And especially the younger the age group, the more important. But you still won't run with what we would call old-timey advertising. Sure, there has to be some radio, some TV, again, depending on your campaign. But nothing will work better than you giving that personal message to as many people as you can give it to yourselves. Whether it's a group like this, whether it's a civic organization, whether it's a religious group, those of you here that are in a little marketing or governmental relations, remember, you're just selling yourself. You're out there doing marketing, except you're doing it for yourself. It's tougher these days. You are constantly watched. Again, we talked about the social media itself. We would always be curious what was happening during legislative meetings because we couldn't be there. Now, what do? I just keep Twitter open because everyone is sitting there. And I actually know simultaneously 5 seconds, what's happening on an important issue just by keeping up with tweets that are coming out. Unheard of, again, in my day. You make a mistake, the world can find out. That could be sitting in, Australia and know about it in 30 seconds. It is a different type of communications that we have today. And in fact, we're somewhat overloaded. Politics these days, people tend to be overloaded on politics in general. Why? With 24-hour broadcast and news channels, we start running for president the day after the president's elected. 4 more years. This year, we were talking about it in the back of the room. Since they moved the primary elections up, if people are going to run for office this year, they've got to decide in the next 3 months, 4 months, when the filing period opens. Because the election is going to be next March. So it's time to make decisions on people running this year. Because it's coming and it's coming quick. With that said, now with the decongestants I'm on and my mouth won't move since it's so dry, I'm going to shut up for a minute. And I'd love to just sit here and talk. That's what I really like to do anyways, just have a conversation, or if you guys have questions or just want to ask about things. Be careful, I'm not in office anymore, so you'll get an honest answer. So you might think about what you want to visit about. Anybody just want to talk about something or ask questions? Yes, ma'am.
What would be your elevator conversation or speech to someone who asks, why should I jump in, given everything, but in all the dynamics of running, the background checks, your life is not your own anymore. What would be that short, brief reason, particularly for women, why should we run? For any office, and I'm not just talking state level, federal, I'm saying
Although it's
even
more,
school board.
although it is more difficult, we would call it partisan divides. It is still my belief, I'm saying more difficult today, but it's still my belief that you as an individual can accomplish more within the political process than probably almost anywhere else that you can be. We see gridlock in Washington. We almost, it's not the Little Rock, and I hope it never gets there. But it is certainly much greater chance that will occur than it ever has. But it still doesn't mean that you can't be there and you can't have your voice. And I don't care which side of the political spectrum, left, right, in the middle. We need good, sound policy makers. We need good, sound public officials. And a lot of people that formerly would have run are not running these days because of exactly what you said, and I hate seeing that. There was a time that it truly was, you saw the best and brightest as far as men and women that were in public office. They considered it an honor to be in public office. And again, because as strident as politics has turned now, you know, you're a thief, you're there for your self-serving interest, you're only there for one or two particular issues itself. And that really saddens me, because public service can be and is very honorable. I will tell you, are there thieves and crooks that are in public office? Sure, just like there's thieves and crooks in the pulpit, but that's going to occur. But I will tell you, as a class, the public officials I have been around for 30 years, you probably will not find a class like that with so many dedicated men and women who really want to try to change things. You don't, the term limits era stopped a lot of what used to be the congenial development as far as within the structure itself, internally. When I was a member of the state senate was, no question, was my extended family. Those personal relationships don't develop as much today in the era of term limits. And to some extent, I think that's hurt the institutions. To some extent today, again, with term limits, you don't have the institutional memory residing in state government that you once had. You tend not to have the expertise that are there. It concerns me, again, that we have decided to turn over our board of directors, which I call the legislature. We elect the people we believe can honestly represent our interests. And God knows there may be 10 interests on one particular issue. And then we decide that for whatever reason, we give up our right to reelect those people. I hate term limits. I've said it since day one. I don't think term limits is the best. We've got term limits, and it's at the ballot box. And I hate to see, initially it's changed some, and we extended them, and I think that will help, although I think they'll be voted back. I hate to see the people's branch of government become that with the least knowledge. Be honest, it's difficult to pick up the phone and talk to the governor. Pretty difficult to pick up the phone and talk to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I guarantee you, you pick up the phone, try to get your House member in the legislature, you're gonna reach them eventually, they're gonna call you back. And it's, I see a lot of the institutional knowledge that has switched to the bureaucracies, and I still can't talk to that. But to department heads, and there are good people that are department heads, but that's where the knowledge is shifting to, and has shifted to.
What was your experience trying to be an attorney and a state senator simultaneously? Were you able to juggle both, or?
Honest answer, I had, well, number one, I did have 2 other partners. But I also had, the day I started, there was also a young lady that started that same day that my senior partner had hired, who had just graduated from a vocational technical school and was looking for a job. She and I learned to practice law together. She became a better attorney than I was, even though I wasn't licensed, and she ran my life for the next 25 years. But again, remember too, about 3 months every other year I was gone. But again, Mondays through Thursdays. Usually was home Thursday afternoon or the latest Friday afternoon. So I could get work done. And I could get work done on the weekends if I needed to. But again, I was fortunate enough when I got back to my office, my pleadings were done, everything else, my correspondence was done, my motions were done, discovery was answered. I just went through it, made sure everything was correct, approved it, and was able to sign my name to it. Her name is Cindy Wimpern. As I say, she literally took care of the law office with help, again, from others. associate in the department. Political wise, she kept my schedule. She was a huge help to me. But again, it wasn't, the legislature did not take up the time that a lot of people allow it to take up today. It wasn't that full-time position that it's quickly become.
So do you think people tend to, today with the legislature, tend to quit their current job and sustain income through campaigning, for example, as opposed to balancing the two aspects of their work life?
I think you still, the people there today, what I am seeing, and I'll let Angela or John comment, who are as knowledgeable of the legislature as certainly as I am, especially today. A lot of people may be businessmen or women whose businesses can, quote, run without their day-to-day presence. I think that we are seeing a little bit more of retired individuals that are coming back in and believe that now that they have time for the political process. And I think those are probably the two biggest factors that I see. I see some that are, again, we see a lot of people that the legislature is, quote, their job. That's all they do. You're not going to get rich, but these days you're not going to go broke. Serving as a member, the recent salary increase put them 30
About 40,000.
40, I was gonna say 40.
Yeah, 40. And the mileage and the per diems. And, I mean, you can pretty easily be a member of the General Assembly now, even before the salary increase. Yeah, 40, 50, 60,000, depending on where you live and your expense reimbursements and things such as that. Now you probably can, you're going to be able to pretty easily at least, and again, they're expensive. I'm not talking about people's net income, please, I don't mean that. But as far as just money received from serving, you probably pretty easily could be in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. So some people, that's their job.
Can you talk a little bit more about the process from the beginning, and maybe include a little information about supporting roles? Someone
What
who
kind
might-
of roles?
Well, somewhat supportive roles, someone, your little team, that may walk you through from the beginning.
If you are thinking about running, and again, thinking about running for a particular position, the first thing that I would do is go talk to someone who's been there. Okay? Get their thoughts on it. Talk to people that have been involved in the process, whether it's like a gentleman like an Archie Shaker or who else it may be, but if you know someone that served, go see them. Try to form yourself a core of people whose judgment that you trust to advise you, whether that's 3 or 4, or in fact, the smaller the better, but 3 to 4 to 5 people that you genuinely trust their advice, and will pay attention to them. We usually have a general rule, always hire people around us that are smarter than we are. And that's not really that sarcastic. And that's what, we certainly tried to do that during the time in the governor's office. And I would have put our governor's office staff up against 49 other states as well as Guam and Samoa, with the people that we had. We had a wonderful group, and we had a mix of youthful exuberance and all the way up to pretty gray hair. And it was a good group. But again, back to just get a group that you trust. Look at finances. Again, this is going to vary according to the office. Can you afford to run? Now, you can raise your filing fee and go file, and that can be the last money you spend. That's up to you, okay? But you may not have that successful a campaign. But determine what you feel you can spend, determine what you feel you can budget for a campaign itself. That's just real world. You are developing a startup business, and that's your campaign. It's like opening up another startup business, just as you were in the private sector. You've got to have budgets, you've got to know what you're able to spend. You've got to decide, are you willing to personally take your monies in place in the campaign itself? Other people are gonna help you develop a message as to what your theme may be for your particular campaign. And again, may depend if it's city, if it's county, if it's our school board member, that's deciding to serve on a school board again. And, the other thing to determine why, ask yourself, why are you running for that office? I see a lot of people that run for office and they've got a one-issue crusade going on. That's probably not the best reason to run for office, just because you're kind of PO'd about one particular issue. So decide if you're willing to look at the broad picture, again, depending on the responsibilities of that office itself. If you're gonna run, sure, if you're running as a Republican or Democrat, try to talk to the party leaders. See what their advice they might be able to give you, but to say the best advice is gonna come from someone who's been there before you.
Talk a little bit more about hyper-partisanship in politics these days. I mean, back in the good old days, the mantra was politics is the art of compromise. Now compromise is a dirty word. Is there anything that can be done about that?
And Archie is totally correct. I really did not ever think I would see it be this strongly partisan, whether it's in Washington, D.C., or whether it's in Little Rock, Arkansas. You can talk to former members of our congressional delegation, be they congressmen and our senators, and even they can tell you stories about the, quote, congeniality, hard fought. You fought inside the Capitol, you fought on the floor, you fought in committee, and you later went out and had dinner together. And your kids grew up together and they played together. There were issues, again, whether conservative or liberal, a lot of times you found a place in the middle that could still accomplish the purpose of some worthwhile public policy. Coming back home, I'll give you a real world example. In this last legislative session, there was a bill filed by a freshman Democrat representative from Little Rock to merely allow employees within state government to have additional family leave. It was killed because it was, quote, a Democrat-sponsored bill that the members were told to vote against. I don't know how many people came up to that member and said, you've really got a good bill and I wish I could vote for you, but we have been told to vote against it. And guys, that's Republican and Democrat vote. Both are guilty of it. These days, if a Democrat says the sun comes up in the west, the Republicans go no, it actually is in the southwest, or if the Republicans, bring up one issue, then the Democrats will fight it for no reason. We are becoming a nation that does not have policies because we can't develop them. My God, how many years now since Congress has even passed a budget? I think we're at 8 years, but don't hold it. John picks me up way too early this morning to get down here. Why? Because we're probably going to be caught in traffic because our infrastructure is not up to speed. We can't even get a highway bill passed in the Congress. There was a time that projects such as that, again, in this day and time, I doubt seriously if there would be a 4-lane divided highway between Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, and Interstate 40. It probably wouldn't happen today. So give that some thought. Things that are important. I am one that hates to see, we cut out, quote, pork barrel spending. Yeah, there were some abuses of it, but to be real honest with you, earmarking certain projects were the way that certain projects got funded, including 4-lane basically from Missouri to Interstate 40. Was it 49 now? Again, it probably wouldn't be there. So, when I served, there were fights. A lot of those fights were regional. The fights were city and urban. The fights were northwest, central, east. Northwest Arkansas will, still argue to this day, all the money goes to Little Rock. Little Rock will argue, all those people, rich people in Northwest Arkansas are taking all of our money. There was a time that the schools in East Arkansas were losing population so quickly, there was all kinds of fake formulas. So the fast-growing schools in Northwest Arkansas were getting less money, and the eastern schools that were losing money were getting more because of trying to save those particular schools. So you actually fought according to your people's interest, not according to what the devil and political party wanted you to do. And I just wish we could get back to thinking about policy instead of politics. We are now politics, 24/7. There was a time that governmental officials actually talked about policy. Long-term policy now is what's going to happen next Tuesday. And that's not in the best interest of the nation or of the state.
What role does someone who's a centrist have in today's political climate then?
Bring in some sanity to the process. If you ask me personally, what am I would probably tell you I'm a centrist, I'm a moderate. I would probably tell you I'm pretty conservative when it comes to fiscal matters. I'm probably pretty, quote, on the left side if it comes to social matters. But tend to be a moderate itself. I think that there still is a huge role for the centrists to at least continue to try to bring left, right, if you want to refer to it as that, together. And to find a middle ground that can still bring about progress in developing worthwhile policy. Whether it be financial, whether it be, again, a highway system, whether it be energy, whether it be education, whatever it might be.
Do you think a centrist has a chance to get elected in the first place, though?
It's going to depend on the particular area. Again, the appeal now, there's no question if you're going to be running in a Democratic primary in certain areas, you're probably going to have a little bit of what we would refer to as a left-leaning view on policies. If you're running in a very strong, extremely conservative Republican area, you're going to be to the left. That's to get out of your primaries, depending if you have primary opponents or not. I still believe that as far as when it comes to November is when you see more of the quote centrist votes. But again, that's going to vary. It's going to vary by region. It's going to vary by area itself. There are areas that, again, if there's an R beside their name, they're going to be elected. There's areas, if there's a D beside their name, they're going to be elected. One reason that makes it so difficult to change the current attitudes is what I just said. If you looked at every district, member of Congress right now, there are very few of them that aren't locked into one party or the other because of gerrymandering by both parties. There are seats that a Republican will not win. There are seats that a Democrat will not win, and in fact, there's a majority and everybody knows who they are. You actually have probably not more than around 80 to 90 congressional seats that are actually in play in each congressional election itself. It could go either way. It have a balance.
Remember this one? Sorry. Drawing from experience, what are some of the kind of the solutions or techniques you can use to kind of get through the hyper-partisanship you're speaking of?
One way that we were always able, I guess, to get away from it is again, and something that I still, and if I had a magic answer to your question, I'd invite all of you to my island that I have down in the Caribbean. Again, I think where a lot of that used to occur is because of the personal relationships among the policy leaders. The men and women that were elected actually did get to know each other. Now, they were a group of human beings. There were some they liked more than others. I mean, that's just the process. But by and large, they learned to know each other. They learned to trust each other, and what they knew when they were going to disagree. But I think a lot of times it dealt with parties knowing each other from a personal standpoint. You go to your business, you go to your home, you go to your church, you know there are people there that you have developed relationships with whom you feel closer to. Most of you that have been in a work environment, you've got somewhat an extended family in that work environment, more than likely, if you've been there that long and gotten to know those people. That doesn't occur to me. I am really dead serious when I say you would fight and then you would go out and have dinner. You can't be seen with the other side now. Let me say that again. You can't be seen with the other side now. Even being out having a meal together is being horrible. It's bad. So, you know, I would think though that there are still some, what they call the 7 in the Senate, I can't remember what they called them, but there were about 7 centrists, you know, a year or so ago in the Senate that were trying, the U.S. Senate, trying to, you know, at least bring members together and reach some type of compromise itself. But if you're just going to lock down on a particular issue, then you're probably not going to accomplish much, and that's what's occurring. Again, people used to think when they were elected to go to Little Rock, to go to D.C., the main thing they had on their mind is, what the devil can I do to make things better for my people back home? And I don't mean to be cynical, but it seems now, what can I do to best make sure my party stays in power or elects the most people? And there's a place for the political process. It should be there. There should be debates as far as what's appropriate policy. Whether you want to call them conservative, liberal, moderate, those debates need to be there. But once the political side is over, it's time to govern. Once you're elected, then get in there and start trying to govern. And that's what we're not seeing these days.
Marl, you mentioned, when it comes to the legislative branch of our government, you mentioned, when you first started your remarks, some people arrive on the scene as one-issue folks. They've been elected on maybe one issue. They're down there just for one thing. And it usually involves these old divisive social issues that don't lend themselves to a legislative solution in the first place. But do you think we have too many people now in the legislative branch that are there for one reason? And you know, the basic reason for having a legislature, we're a small state with a fairly small tax base, and there's no end to good causes. But the primary purpose, to me, in each session is to cobble together a budget. And there's so many people down there now, I think, that don't even want to get their head into budgetary matters. You know, they don't want to have to come early and stay late. They just want to talk about these social issues. Do you think maybe now that you can serve maybe 16 years, and there'll be enough people that'll try to stay around for 16 years, that they'll finally decide, I really need to try to learn something about this budgetary process?
I think it does make a difference, and again, it's, and for what it's worth, and I hadn't mentioned this, before the change of the last election in term limits, Arkansas had the most strict term limits law in the country. And our people served shorter times, generally. than most in the country. So again, it's, Pat makes a good point. You know, believe it or not, the budget process is hard. And it's got a lot of intricacies within it. And, you know, you can talk in generalities about taxes, but it gets real specific. And you wanna see a spreadsheet, take a look at, you know, where money comes from and where it goes as far as state government is concerned, let alone the federal. I ain't gonna talk about that. But again, it can be a complicated process. Taxes come in, they go to different things. There's things called the revenue stabilization laws, which again, we're fortunate in Arkansas. Our budget has to be balanced. We can't spend more than what we take in, so you've got to prioritize and determine how much money you're gonna get to do and how much money you're gonna guarantee and where will backup monies come from. And, you know, you pay the gasoline, when you come up, you're gonna pay your gasoline taxes. None of that goes to the schools, none of that goes to the state government, it always goes to the highway department. You know, those are earmarked monies themselves, and there's a lot of that that goes around. But say it's a complicated process. It took me a long time to learn it, and I was lucky I could stay there long enough. But now again, Pat, I'll just remind you, just last week, the Arkansas Attorney General approved the wording of a new amendment to change term limits again, to go back to what we had before we voted to extend it last November. So if that goes on the ballot, who knows? It may go back to the 6-year again. And I'm not gonna be surprised if it goes on the ballot, so.
All right. Any more questions?
Guys, I've enjoyed it.
Go on back here.
I'm gonna,
Here.
yes, yes, sir.
I realized, I went down to Little Rock 2 Thursdays ago, and I realized that they have like 350 different, not committees, but, I guess they're committees.
Committees, task force, study commissions, subcommittees.
Commissions,
Yes, sir.
yes. And they're everything. Do you think that's a good way to get some experience, with state government and those kinds of procedures?
I think it's a good way if the time is spent usefully. It can be, and again, you know, certainly those did not exist during my time of service because, again, we had other means. We were there long enough to gain the experience. And I think a lot of this has proliferated for people to try to get more knowledge within particular areas itself that you don't get in a 60-day legislative session. So yes, it can be, you know, do we need as many as they have now?
I saw some pretty crazy ones.
No, my question is if we need as many as we have now. Question if we need a task force for everything. Every now and then, instead of a task force, why don't you just make a decision?
Do they have any weight or power or anything like that?
Ooh. It depends on the purpose they're formed and the power that they are given
Oh, okay.
by the legislature. All of a sudden, probably one of the most powerful subcommittees that will occur are going to be the rules and what's called the Rules and Regs Subcommittee of the Arkansas Legislative Council. Why? Because we passed a constitutional amendment last time saying that the legislature now had the authority to approve or disapprove every rule, every regulation promulgated by every agency in the state. So now every rule and reg is going to start going before that particular subcommittee for either approval or disapproval. So all of a sudden, if they know how to do it, they can become the most powerful people in the state. But, so that one, yeah, it's got a heck of a lot. Now, a lot of the others, no. No,
Okay.
it would not. And it varies, and it's everything in between.
So who's on these task forces?
They're appointed by various people. A lot of times the governor can appoint some. The president pro tem of the Senate can appoint some. The Speaker of the House can appoint some. Sometimes the legislature that creates them kind of automatically appoints, like it will say chairman of the education committee of the House and Senate, so whoever that may be, will be on there again. If you want to pick a way to pick a person, it's in there somewhere, on the various subcommittees and task forces. I'm sure, let's see, today, insurance and commerce committees, I mean, I don't know how many are meeting today, but it just gets day in and day out, just about. I've enjoyed it, guys. I know you gotta go back to work, and one other thing, if it's done right, public services work too, and you actually try to move forward and accomplish something. I don't think any of you work for a business, an occupation, a profession now that can continue to function if you function like some of our legislative bodies are functioning today, which accomplishes nothing. So think about that. Relate government to, as you should, to the private sector. If you could accomplish nothing within your business, how long would you remain there and stay around? So, you guys, go to Little Rock and go to Washington and start getting something accomplished, okay? Thank y'all for having me.